It's just another Mailbag Monday, Johnny, and you have asked all of your questions, like who are the top free agents that the Halos should pursue? Will the AL West be the toughest division next year? And should the Angels try to get Aroldis Chapman? You asked all those questions, and we've got some really good answers. You're locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And John and I thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can give us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today, Johnny, our show is brought to you by SimpliSafe Home Security with Fast Protect technology. Exclusively from SimpliSafe, 24/7 monitoring agents can capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There is no safe like SimpliSafe. So visit simplisafe.com/LockedOnMLB to learn more.
We're so glad you decided to join us for this edition of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every single day. It's a Mailbag Monday. We've got a lot of questions to get to. My name is John. That's my brother, Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother, John. And Johnny, look at what I got here. Do you see that?
Holding up there? It's kind of hard. What is that?
So those of you that are not watching YouTube, this is a David Eckstein bobblehead from the 66ers. Cool. Somebody gave this to me at church yesterday, and it was a really great gift, but his name's RJ, so thank you, RJ, for this.
Yes.
Here's the problem I have with this. Is this how far we've fallen? That we can't... We have to get somebody from the World Series team from 20 years ago as a bobblehead? Is this where we're at, buddy?
You know what? I'd love to have Eckstein back. Let's bring him back.
Yes, let's bring him back. You know what? And here's why we're brothers, because that was my response when I received it. I said, yes. Yeah, it'd be great to have him play short for us.
Absolutely. Well, hey, you've got the Super Halo Bros here with you. You can follow us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and, of course, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. And because of that, you sent in a lot of questions for this Mailbag Monday. Mike, let's begin with this one from James Russell Barton. He asked, Stros are still the team to beat in the West? Hot take, AL West will be the toughest division next year. Mike, are the Astros still the team to beat in the AL West?
Well, to quote Ric Flair, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And so yes, I think that they're going to be the team that everybody's going to have to take down next season because they've won now and gone to the NLCS for 6 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
And
ALCS.
See, I'm already putting them in the National League. I wish they were in the National League.
Go back.
I was thinking about a conversation that one of our friends who hosts Locked On Astros actually said in our thread. He said, hey, would the Astros actually be really good if they hadn't moved to the AL West? And we were trashing and we were like, no, they wouldn't be good at all because the West has been really easy in the last few years, right? And so I think that next season, the best team is going to be the Stros. Mm-hmm. And I think the Mariners are going to be there. Mm-hmm. I think the Angels are going to be there. And I don't think the A's are going to be down for too long. So it's probably going to be a really tight race. And then, of course, Texas is always competitive.
They
got a new
money,
manager,
baby.
right?
Yeah,
they're going to spend that money. So we'll see what happens next season. But yes, in my opinion, the Stros are the team to beat in the AL West. What say you?
I think that they have just done everything right in terms of development. And I know that the cheating still looms over them. But the fact is you've got Yuli Gurriel and Jose Altuve. And that's about it in terms of cheaters, right? And so I'm over the cheating conversation. I think all of those guys have moved on, and I know that the players didn't get disciplined directly, but they're a good team. They're just a good team, and they can't be stopped. They have great pitching. They have clutch hitting. I know Altuve's having the worst postseason stretch of his career, and
which is kind of nice to watch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it lowered his career average in the postseason from 283 to 267.
Wow.
Oof. It's a harsh
Struggling. How about this one, Johnny? From Mannyman2112, he said, who are the top 3 free agents that you want to see the Angels go after? So give Mannyman some names, some people that you would like to see the Halos go after.
Okay, well, the top 3 free agents I want to see them go after, Trey Turner, Jacob deGrom, and Carlos Rodon. The problem is that they won't. And that's so if I'm taking this question too literal, I apologize. In fact, later this week, Mike, you and I are each going to take an episode to play GM.
Yep,
and that's
can't
where
wait.
I will give my reasonable expectations and possibilities for the Angels and how I would approach the offseason. And then you'll do the same for how you would approach the offseason. But for me, it's Trey Turner, DeGrom, and Rodon are three top targets that the Angels could get and should get, but won't get. But who are your top three?
Well, I'll tell you, Ruben Rosas actually sent us a message, and it ties into one of the names that I'm interested in. He said, here's a few names that could be interesting for us to go after this offseason. Nathan Eovaldi, Jameson Taillon. Did I pronounce that right? Jameson Taillon. And Cody Bellinger, Yuli Gurriel. I actually am going to advocate, and I'm going to tease my GM episode. I like Jameson Taillon. I really like him, and I'm gonna prove why. And so I'm with you when we're putting together this content and we're talking about players that we would love for them to go and get. There's these are the dreams, and then there's here's what the Angels will do.
Yes, right? Exactly. Yeah, I liked what Ruben said. Ruben J. Rosas on Instagram. Cody and Yuli would be great depth pieces. I think they'd be a nice first base outfield bench pieces if Walsh and or Adele go down or underperform. Definitely better options than Matt Duffy and Jose Rojas. I strongly agree with that. Yeah. To me, I hadn't thought about Gurriel as a platoon with Walsh. And
neither did I.
That's a really smart move. The only thing I don't like about Gurriel is his racist gesture toward Yu Darvish in the playoffs in the World Series 5 years ago. And that was also when they were cheating. And I just don't know if that's the kind of, I mean, obviously he went to sensitivity training. Obviously he got punished for that after the World Series, by the way. But to see his splits, man, he's a strong career batter against lefties. I believe it's like a 285 career average. So if he has been forgiven by his fellow teammates, by Darvish himself, and can prove to be a good person, then I think Gurriel could be a great platoon option because he's not as good as he used to be. But if you're using him and Jared Walsh to play to their strengths, I think that's a great idea. And I also hadn't thought about Jameson Taillon. I think he's a great option as well. Mike, here's somebody that a lot of people are interested in, and that is Aroldis Chapman. Anthony Aguiluz on Instagram said, hey, guys, me and my bud have been going back and forth about this, and I want your opinion because it's never wrong. That's not true. He thinks
just ask our wives.
He thinks if the Yankees decide to release Chapman this offseason, he'd be a good pickup. I'm just wondering if you can chime in. Mike, the underlying numbers for Aroldis Chapman say no. And the problem is the last 2 years have been pretty tough for him. And if you continue the projection that he is on, listen to some of the stats that I pulled. His hard hit percentage has gone up in 21 and 22. And he consistently sits above the league average. His walk percentage was 30% higher than the league average in 21 and 20% higher in 22. The expected weighted on base average, which is WOBA, as we like to call it, that just takes into account how a player gets on base as opposed to saying they got on base. It says how they did it. It was pretty consistently under league average from 2015 to 2020, so his best years. But in 21 and 22, he's been 100 to 200 points higher than league average. He's lost movement on his pitches in 21 and 22. It's resulted in less swings and misses on anything that's not the four-seam fastball. In fact, he actually got more movement on his four-seam fastball, but everything else that he throws has actually gone down in movement, and it's resulted in less swings and misses. So he's not fooling anybody anymore. And I think that is a huge part of Aroldis Chapman's game, is to go from the four-seam fastball to the splitter to the slider, that sort of thing. And if he's losing inches on those pitches, that's just not a good trajectory. And I don't think that we'd want to shell out a lot of money for Chapman in that regard.
So you're telling me he's perfect for our rotation, is what you're telling me.
for our bullpen, yeah, he would fit right in.
Doesn't this feel like an Angel move though? Doesn't it feel like an Angel move with he's a free agent, we sign him and everybody's stoked about it, but then we look at the stats and we go, oh dear God, it's not going to be good at all. Yeah. So I hope not. If we did do that, we can't rely on him being like back of the bullpen guy.
No.
like fifth, sixth, seventh inning guy,
Right.
if that right now.
If you
right?
were frustrated with Aaron Loop, then let me tell you about
Yeah,
Aroldis Chapman.
you're not gonna like this guy. Yeah.
Our next question, Mike, Max Green Rams Baseball asks, should the Angels go after Kershaw or someone else? Can we rely on our prospects? Kershaw, to me, was somebody that I thought would be a good move last season, and he actually had a pretty good 22 with the Dodgers. The rumor with him is always Texas, and because he's a Texas boy, and I could see the Rangers making a play for him. I think that there are cheaper options, more reliable options, and more consistent options who are going to stay healthy, because we all know that we have struggled with healthy pitching for the last 10 years. I think Kershaw would be kind of a big risk if we were to go that direction. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a risk, and he was hurt this year, and he still had a great year, but he was hurt this year. And if he doesn't come back to the Dodgers, then I can see him going to Texas, but I can't see the Dodgers letting him go. I think Kershaw's a Dodger for life. He's a Hall of Famer, and I think it would be foolish to let him go. He's the Jared Weaver of the Dodgers, and so they need to figure that out, because I think he's a great fit for their team.
As far as trusting our prospects, we actually have a great voicemail that we'll get into coming up just right now. But in the meantime, Michael, why don't you take it away?
All right. Well, coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to get to that voicemail. Plus, we're going to answer questions about like the prospects. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by SimpliSafe. In the last decade, over 4 million people have said yes to a SimpliSafe home security system to protect their home, because at SimpliSafe, your safety is what matters. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. And here's why you're going to love SimpliSafe. It's super customizable, so you don't have to purchase things that you don't need in order to get what you want. The system integrates well in your home, and it's easy to self-install. So if you're like me and have no idea how to do that, they actually walk you through it, and there's great directions, super easy. And you don't need a tech to come out and schedule something, which is always annoying to have somebody come out and then they track mud in your house and you get frustrated, and you don't want that, right? So SimpliSafe, they've got your back, and they don't have like this bulky unit that damages or messes up your home's design. It actually looks natural in your home. And the system will bring you the security that you want and the peace of mind that you need while you're asleep at night or you're away during the day. SimpliSafe is simple to use. Whether you're controlling the system from your phone with the app's actually really cool. You can access and watch crystal clear HD streams of your security cameras, or you're talking to one of the agents who are monitoring your system. They call you actually when there is a threat detected to get you the help you need ASAP. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. You can save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan, and you can get your first month free. So here's a website again. Visit simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb to learn more. And remember, there's no safe like SimpliSafe.
We want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, and we want to thank you for sending in your questions and getting in our voicemail. And here's our voicemail of the day with a very good question. Let's take a look.
Hey guys, Tracy from Henderson again. I appreciate what you guys do. Listen to all these shows. And I just listened to Tuesday's podcast and wholeheartedly agree that the farm system needs to be rebuilt, but I don't know how you do that when you draft 19 pitchers, as was done by Perry. And I think if we're being realistic, 6 of the 8 positions in the starting lineup are open. Obviously, Trout is not, and Rendon is not. And Rendon is only open a closed one because of his contract. But this is a team that lost almost 90 games, and I think the farm system really hasn't improved all that much. And I know that I kind of rocked the boat here a little bit, so the chances of this getting on are probably slight. But look forward to what you guys do. Thanks so much.
Tracy from Henderson, Nevada. We always appreciate your phone calls, my friend. Yeah. And don't ever worry about rocking the boat here on Locked On Angels, because even when people like that, we wouldn't be having these discussions if we didn't include people who don't agree with our takes. And sometimes even on YouTube, there's some takes that people don't agree with. And I think it's great because it just inspires more conversation. So please don't ever be afraid of rocking the boat, because we welcome that. And Mike, I think I want to ease Tracy's mind from Henderson, Nevada. Of course, I want to ease his mind in terms of the approach that Perry Minasian took last season, and then maybe you can speak to the fact, he says that Trout's spot is locked up, Rendon's spot is locked up, but everything else is fair game. But as far as the 2021 draftees who were part of that all pitching draft that Perry Minasian did last year, well, there are a lot of those draftees, those pitchers, who were part of the Trash Pandas this season. And the Trash Pandas, obviously, we know they went to the championships. They had an 81-57 record. A big part of that was their pitching core. And so just to bring some relief here, no pun intended when I'm talking about relievers, but Sam Bachman was he was the number one pick in 21. He had 12 starts with the Trash Pandas, 43 2/3 innings, a 3.92 ERA, and a 1.5 whip. Now, he was injured for some of this season. Kai Bush, another 21 draftee, went 7-4, a 3.67 ERA, 21 starts, 103 innings pitched, and a 1.84 whip. Now, Landon Marceau, who was also in High A, Tri-City, and the Trash Pandas, he was actually a little bit better with High A, so he's probably got a little bit more work to do. 2.98 ERA, 18 starts, 90.2 innings pitched, and get this, a 0.949 whip, so less than one person an inning. 9/10 really of a person. You've got Luke Murphy, who went 7-2 with a 2.62 ERA. He had 37 games in relief, 44 2/3 innings pitched, somebody that we could count on in the bullpen in the future. Brett Carey was also a draftee. He went 5-7, 20 starts in 25 games. He had a 4.46 ERA. So he's got a little bit of work to do. But what I like about some of this, Mike, is he's got 103 innings pitched. So all of these guys are really getting some longevity in terms of the innings that they're pitching. Of course, Mason Erla, 5-6. He was part of the draft last season, 4.28 ERA, 16 starts, 1.305 whip. Chase Silseth, who we did see in the majors, went 7-0 with a 2.28 ERA, 15 starts, 83 innings pitched, and a 9.52 whip. Eric Torres was a closer. He pitched in 42 games, had 22 saves, a 1.59 ERA, a 9.41 whip. Nick Jones, of course, he was across High A, Tri-City, and the Trash Pandas. 39 games in relief, 43 innings pitched. He went 4-1. Braden Olthoff was somebody we were excited about. He did struggle a little bit. All in all, he had a 5-9 season with a 4.57 ERA, but he had a 3.13 ERA with Tri-City. He had 17 starts in 23 games, so they're still figuring out where he's going to fit in. 108 innings pitched. Pretty great. Glenn Albanese across High A, Tri-City, Trash Pandas. He had a 3.66 ERA, 32 games, 46 2/3 innings pitched, and a 1.264 whip. So all of that to say, I think that it was necessary for Perry to fix the pitching problem, and he did so in 21. And that's what he focused on in the offseason before 22. Obviously, we saw that there's still a severe lack of depth in offense, and that's why I was excited about the 2022 draft, where we got guys like Zach Neto, and then we traded for Logan O'Hoppe. He was making some supplemental moves to help with the depth. And another thing to consider, when you draft 5 pitchers in a 20-person draft, let's say, you're lucky if one of those hits.
Sure.
And from all accounts, when you have 19 pitchers, you get like at least 5 of those guys to be really good, then you've won the lottery. The other thing to consider is that if you do need to improve depth, these guys can all be trade pieces. While we would like to see them obviously dominate as pitchers, these guys could all be trade pieces to supplement the needs that we have, including offense, first base, second base, third base, whatever the case is. You could see that these guys would be great trade pieces to get what we need. But as far as you look at Levon Soto coming up and being really good at shortstop, and then you see Zach Neto making an instant impact. And of course, again, we're all excited about Logan O'Hoppe. Mike, Tracy mentioned some of the positions that probably are locked up by Trout and Rendon, but he said that the other 7 or 8 are still open. How do you feel about that?
I think that second base or shortstop is locked down depending on where you put David Fletcher, because he does have a long-term deal. He does have a 4 or 5 year deal. So I think you want Fletch in the starting lineup. I think that he brings a great contact bat for the team. So I would say, let's say he's at second base. I think second base is locked down. I think first base is locked down. I think Jared Walsh is going to be the Jared Walsh, and we talked about this. He's going to be the Jared Walsh that we discovered in 2020 and in 2021. I think this last season was just a really difficult season for him because of his injury. And so I think that that's locked down. I can't see Taylor Ward going anywhere. And so I think right field is locked down, especially if he comes back and has a second season as good as his first season. I think it'll be better than last year. And then I think that the positions that are open, in my opinion, are left field and shortstop. And I would even say catcher. I know Max Stassi has a long-term deal there as well, but I think Logan O'Hoppe needs to be in the major leagues, because I think that this kid has really proven to be somebody that's going to be productive for the team, but also be great behind the plate. So I would say to Tracy, I would say that there's 3 positions, in my opinion, that are open for discussion, but the other positions, in my opinion, are pretty much locked down. And you and I will address some of those things when we do our GM show as to who we think should go into those open spaces in the lineup.
All right, for our last segment of the day, we've got a few more questions. This one came from Samuel Perez. He said, "Hey guys, love what you do. New listener, so I apologize if you've already covered this. But with the Halos getting a new owner, could that mean something for the stadium situation? Would they move to Long Beach? And would they have an oceanfront stadium, which would be kind of exciting?" He said, "I love Angel Stadium. Think of it as a second home, but after visiting several ballparks, I realized the Angel Stadium has an identity issue. It's old. It's been renovated a few times. Doesn't really have a classic look like Wrigley or Fenway or Dodger Stadium, and it's still kind of lacking the wow factors of newer parks like Petco, Coors Field." He said, "I love me a great baseball stadium, and I want to know what you guys think about the Angels moving to Long Beach, but if they did stay in Anaheim, what type of renovations would you like to see?" We really appreciate that message, Samuel. Mike, how do you feel about a move, or how do you feel about renovations? What would you like to see at an Angels Stadium?
I think that the new owners need to come in and establish a great stadium in Anaheim. I don't think that it would be great for the new owners to move this team. They're still under contract, I believe, for 10 more years, 5 to 10 more years in Anaheim at
Yeah, they have a pretty
Angel
long
Stadium.
lease.
Yeah, they got a pretty long lease. And that's the thing, is they don't own it. And so I think that that's going to be a piece that needs to be negotiated, whether they can get the property around. I know Artie was trying to get that property. If it's going to be somebody like a Stan Kroenke, and what he did with the Rams is beautiful. SoFi Stadium is incredible, and all the stuff around it is incredible. And so that's what I would like to see them do in Anaheim. I love the hats. I think that that's great. I love the Big A. I think, in my opinion, the stadium does kind of have that sentimentality, but we've been Angel fans for a long time. And so I think that plays into it a bit. I love the Big A out in the parking lot. Maybe they can incorporate that more in the stadium. But in my opinion, moving them, I don't think would create great relationship with Angel fans. And I like having the team in Anaheim because it's only an hour away, and Long Beach is about an hour and a half. So, and it's easy in and it's easy out right off the 57 freeway. So I think it would be great to stay there. I would love to see them make it a bit more pristine, maybe a bit more baseball-y, and that we had maybe some things that were happening around it, making an event that you show up to like SoFi is, and even in Vegas with the Raiders, like their stadium is in Vegas. I think that that's what the new owner needs to bring, and that's what I would be negotiating if I was him or her.
I saw a great post on the Angels Reddit thread. Somebody did a mock design of a new Angel Stadium in the show because they have the stadium builder. One of the things I liked was it was like Gene Autry Smokehouse or something like that. There was a restaurant named after him. Then the other thing was in center field behind the rocks. It was kind of a redesigned rock pile. There's a huge scoreboard and there's a big A going through it. Think the crown at Kauffman Stadium where you see KC, and then that's kind of the scoreboard as well. So they incorporated an A into the scoreboard and looked really cool.
Oh, I love that.
Check that out on the Angels Reddit thread. I love spending time on there as well. Hey, Cohennial asks, LAA needs a fresh look, new uniforms. How would you feel about a full City Connect rebrand? I think the Angels just, once the new owner comes in, I think they need to refresh the uniforms. It's been 20 years that they've had this scheme. I'd like to see, and if you're watching on YouTube, I got my old school navy blue and red Bill 80s Angel hat, and I love the navy blue. I wish that would be incorporated into our uniforms. So I think once new ownership comes in, there's got to be a refresh of the stadium. There's got to be a refresh of the uniforms. I like the City Connect. I just wouldn't base a new design on the City Connect. I would let that stay being a special every now and then kind of jersey.
Yeah, they're growing on me, but I think utilizing the state of California, that 80s logo, I would bring that back and give it a modern feel and a modern look, similar to what your hat looks like. I think that would be a great look for the Halos to have instead of the red and white, maybe to do red and blue and go back to some of that classic 80s look, throw it back and honor the history. I think that would be a really great way. Maybe they could bring Rod Carew back, and when they do that,
right.
Build relationship back with him. I think that would be a really great move.
Hey, we've got 2 questions about ownership. Turbo J911 said, we need a big-time owner. Are the Angels getting one? There's more people talking about people interested in the Phoenix Suns rather than the Angels. And then Invasion of Mike said, finding it odd how quiet the interested parties are in the sale of the Angels. Outside of the LA Times owner and the Golden State Warriors owner, who is actually negotiating to buy the team. And I did a little search just because, is there any news out there currently? And there's not a lot of current news. As we know, Mike, the Angels always play this stuff close to the vest, and we don't hear about it until it's actually happened. And I feel like that's going to happen with the Angels once again. But one name I found and I hadn't heard of yet, and this was from a Forbes article on September 9th. Gregory Milken is the co-founder of the investment firm March Capital. They invest in the gaming industry, companies, cloud technology, esports. He's somebody who has shown that he's interested in having a sports team. He's a father of 5. He's married, and he's a younger guy, probably like early 40s. And he seems very excited about like gaming industry. And I think that extends to sports, the sports world, right?
Yeah.
And so he's done a lot in terms of technological stuff. He's done a lot in terms of investing in cloud technologies and young upstart gaming companies who then get acquired by bigger companies, but he is there to help them and get their brands off the ground, get their production companies off the ground. So he's been doing that for about 6 years with March Capital. And so that's a name I hadn't heard of until I found this Forbes article. So he seems like another interesting candidate. But all that to say, I honestly believe, and this is just me speculating, I feel like this talk has been going on since before the announcement came out. Do you agree?
It has to, right? Because when you look at all these other teams, like for example, the Washington Nationals had somebody come out and say he was interested. It's the owner of the Wizards and the Mystics, and I think he owns another team too. So he would actually own four big sports franchises. You haven't heard much from this Halo news about getting a new owner, and I think it's because that's just how they move. That's just how they operate. Which can I just say, new ownership, please communicate.
Yeah,
please let us know what's happening. Yeah. Like let's communicate and give information. You don't have to give it all. You don't have to speculate, but let us know what's happening right now. Hey, things are moving forward. We have a couple of people that are interested. I just don't know why any of that information hasn't come out unless MLB doesn't want them to release it during the playoffs. But the Nationals news about new ownership came out. And so I'm just not sure why we don't hear stuff. That's really, really frustrating that we don't hear stuff as fans. I think they can endear themselves to us if they just kind of gave us a clue or a hint as to what's happening in that organization today.
Now, take this as a grain of salt. Bob Nightingale did have that article a few weeks ago that we talked about on the show where we would get some news probably beginning of 2023, but that's Bob Nightingale. So
right.
Take that for what it's worth.
He's right about 30% of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So last question, Johnny, from Eggy Nicky. He said, what represents the Angels best? What song represents? Is it Build Me Up, Buttercup by the Foundations? If you had to pick a song, what would best represent the state of the organization right now?
I'm going off the top of my head here, and I'm picking Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind because the chorus says, I want something else. And that's what I want. I want something else to get me through this semi-charmed kind of life, because it's been way too much of the same for the last 12 years. I know we had the best record in baseball in 2014, but we have just not been the team that we were from 2000 to 2010. And I want something else. So that's what I'm taking for my song. What would you pick?
I'm going to stick with the 90s too. I'm going to go with Radiohead, High and Dry. Don't leave me high.
Ooh, yikes. That's the sound of all of our listeners going away.
Yes. And so that's how I feel. Don't leave me high and dry. I need you to get a good owner. I need you to get some good players, and let's figure this out. I need you also to keep Shohei Ohtani. So High and Dry by Radiohead would be my pick.
And Alden Gonzalez, we don't play Buttercup anymore, my friend. So just so you know, I know that you mentioned that the other day. Yeah, we haven't done that for about 6 years. So we're past that now. I know you haven't been around here in about 6 years. That's okay. You're off doing bigger and better things with ESPN, I guess.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. They share the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's always really great. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks to all of you who sent in questions and got in our voicemail. Of course, you can always reach us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, depth is the word. We always talk about how we need depth. Perry Manassian said we need depth. Fans said we need depth. And so we're going to talk about what the heck do we mean by depth tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
It's going to be a great conversation. We hope that you'll join us again. In the meantime, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Angels, and we will see you tomorrow.